Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Welcome to the program. Tonight, we dive into the Lagos Assembly crisis where impeached Speaker Mudashiru Obasa has made a dramatic comeback, storming the legislative chamber with just 4 lawmakers in attendance. This bold move comes just hours after newly elected Speaker Mojisola Miranda's security was pulled, although later restored, forcing her and the other 26 lawmakers loyal to her to feel sidelined. Speculation suggests a power deal may force both Obasa and Miranda to step aside for a fresh start, a deal reportedly brokered by top Southwest governors Chief Bisi Akande and under the president's directive. Well, what does this mean for Lagos, and what does this say about Nigeria's nascent democracy? Join us on the program tonight is Ismail Omipidan. He is a political editor at the Sun newspaper, and we also have with us this evening a political affairs analyst and commentator, also an APC chieftain, Dr. Suleiman Hashim, to help us navigate some of the issues as they continue to develop in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos State. Gentlemen, good evening to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Good evening. Let's start first with first impressions. This is nothing peculiar. We've been here before. We've seen this happen in so many other states. But what are your impressions about the way these things are unfolding in Lagos?
Well, for me, it's I was a bit taken aback, and I must confess I was disappointed in the fact that you see, Lagos pride itself as a center of excellence, and usually when you talk about excellence, it means that it's a place where you get the best at every point in time. I'm aware that there's been a series of lobbying discussions going on how to give the removed speaker or the sacked speaker a soft landing. And for me, if the information filtered to him, or perhaps if he got the information of the attempt to give him a soft landing was what emboldened him to do what he did today, I believe very strongly that those who have a little respect for him, I'm sure they would have lost that respect by now, because, I mean, a Speaker of the House of Assembly, a temple where you are supposed to make law, and you are ordinarily you were number 1 as far as that precinct is concerned. And for you to be seen doing that kind of a thing, I wonder how his children will feel at home, tonight, watching that kind of display of lawlessness.
Dr. Hashim, the removed impeached speaker who denies, obviously, the validity or integrity of the process itself, has said, listen, he's not against the idea of removal. It's a constitutional provision. As an APC member, what do you make of this drama that's unfolding in Lagos, particularly because it is the home state of the president?
Okay, so the thing is, sometimes if you want to be realistic about discussing politics, you have to tend to take morality out of it, because at the end of the day, politics is about numbers. It's about the ability to wield influence and be able to exert it, and to show that, yes, I've got the numbers and I've got the mandate, and I want to protect my mandate. I listened very well to the to the speaker, to Obasa. This evening, incidentally, he was on another TV station speaking, and I was listening to him on my way here, and he outlined, I'm a public service somebody, and I understand that part of the problem we have in Nigeria is the fact that, people have this impression that law doesn't work in Nigeria, or that you could bypass it, or that you could do what you like. And that's why the best people who succeed in Nigeria are those who are mindful of the laws of the land. So if I want to do something, I have a strategist who will look at it and make sure he tells me that, look, based on the provisions of the extant things in the country, do this or don't do that. And to be honest with you, when I heard this man speak about, first of all, is that the house itself is on recess. and the recess was properly debated and put up by the leader, and the vote was made and everybody agreed. So that means that by that, I mean, it's natural for everybody to understand that it will only be again the speaker who will convene. I mean, that's even a normal...
so you don't think this is a black and white situation where, you know, even if they have the numbers, there are some processes...
Absolutely, yeah, the strategy was probably not well thought out. That's what I'm able to depict about this, because if the strategy was well thought out, then you should put all of this into, because at the end of the day, you're going to give your perceived enemy the instruments to be able, perhaps if he's even more strategic than you and he understands it and he has critical people working around him, they're simply going to interpret it and tell him, oh God, you don't have anything to worry about, because they have nothing on you as far as the law is concerned. And that's what I see that's playing out right now. So I feel that everybody who's reasonable, don't forget, for example, even if the president is involved, he has an attorney general who advised him to tell him, sir, as far as this thing is concerned, in order for us to save the face of democracy and not let Lagos be where a breach of the constitution will be glaring, it is better we play safe. And I think perhaps that's what's going on. What the outcome of the negotiations is going to be, we cannot be certain to say, but then perhaps I feel that there is a semblance of the fact that the law and the due processes which appear to have initially not have been followed will have to be followed.
All right. Again, we're talking about rules and regulations here. By the book, was this impeachment, followed to the latter? Well, let's hear from the horse's mouth, the impeached Speaker Obasa first, and the other group loyal to the current Speaker, Mojisola Miranda, who had quite a lot to say about what transpired at the Lagos State House of Assembly. Have a listen.
Italy, I've never been removed. There's nothing like impeachment. So I don't know what you are saying. I've said this openly.
Sir.
That everybody, remove, what is it called? Impeachment or whatever, or removing is all democratic and constitutional. But in doing that, to achieve that, you must follow the due process. Nobody is against. I'm not against being removed. If I do that, then I'm not democratic. But all we are saying, let us go through the normal process and achieve that. So if we do, fine. That's just, I'm not against anybody. I don't have anything against anybody. All my colleagues, they've always been my brother. They have always been loyal. They've been dedicated. A strong commitment to serve the people of Lagos. I will continue to do that together. For me, I have no reservation, nothing against anybody, and no intention of victimization.
We are approached by our leaders that we should remain calm and take things easy until the approach. But we are shocked to see what is happening today. And we are still expecting them to come and tell us we went wrong or what really went wrong. We won't take laws into our hands, just like I told the staffs that they should not take laws into their hands. But we all belong to different constituencies and we have our mandates. And whatever has to happen, the leadership should speak with us and not this charade that we are seeing. For me to even enter the gate, I was stopped and told by security operatives that I cannot enter the House of Assembly. It's an embarrassment.
We hereby reject Obasa.
We reject
Obasa.
We reject him in totality.
Well, I suppose the majority has their say there. Mr. Ismail, it's very clear that, whether by the book or not, Obasa is the unpopular leader of the House of Assembly that has been ousted. Obviously, we're hearing conversations behind the scenes of those stakeholders that pretty much hold sway when it comes to Lagos politics, deciding to step in. We understand Obasa and Miranda may likely step aside and allow for some sort of stability. But what do you make of the body language of the parties involved, the actors? He has 4 lawmakers who apparently were loyal to him, who took part in the activity today, but 26 others plus the current speaker are on the other side of the aisle. And there's going to be another vote today. It's safe to say that Obasa will be impeached yet again. But what do you make of the intrigues behind the scenes?
Well, let me start this way first. If he claims that the process sacking him from office was not proper, Obasa is not a court to determine that. He has gone to court. For me, ordinarily, he should have waited for the court to make a pronouncement, because you cannot be a judge in your own case. Now, I'm not familiar with the rules of Lagos State House of Assembly, but at least I'm familiar with the rules of the National Assembly, and I'm also familiar with the rules of a few other state houses of assembly. Now, if there are crises, accepted, you may have decided to go on recess, but there are provisions. I have not seen that of Lagos, but in other states and that of National Assembly, there are provisions where if you have a certain number of lawmakers, they can reconvene the House without the express permission of the Speaker, especially when they have a case against.
Yeah, actually, it says under the Nigerian law as reflected in standing orders of each House of Assembly, the authority to reconvene a legislative session generally rests with the Speaker.
Absolutely.
However, the Speaker is responsible for setting the session's date and time. If the Speaker is unavailable, the Deputy Speaker or another designated presiding officer may reconvene the House in accordance with its rules. In some cases, they say even the State Governor could call for a special
in this case,
session.
the Deputy Speaker may have reconvened the House of Assembly. So which means it's in order. But let us even assume, that the House was not properly convened. It is not for Obasa to make that pronouncement. It is the court that should make such a pronouncement. That is one. Two, I am aware that before that House went on recess, Obasa had majority of lawmakers on his side. And so for him to lose those lawmakers within a space of 2-3 weeks, it means one or two things. One, that perhaps the loyalty were bought. Two, that there are other things those lawmakers were afraid of. That was why they were following, because I was shocked to observe that just within a space of 2-3 weeks, he has lost over 20 lawmakers that were with him. Something certainly must be wrong. That is one. Two, talking about the intrigues and the power play, I am aware that in every House of Assembly, especially where you have a strong character as the leader of the party, there's always an attempt to ensure that you have somebody of a very strong character as a speaker, so that when the governor is trying to mess up or misbehave, you can use the speaker to raise the flag. For me, I think that is one of the things that is playing out. But because initially I'm aware that the leader of the party in the state, who incidentally is our president, at the point was insisting for obvious reasons that Obasa should return. Because don't forget that Obasa is from Lagos West. Now, Lagos West is the largest single senatorial district in Lagos. They produce the highest number of votes. And so, politically speaking, I agree with those leaders that you cannot leave such a senatorial district without a political office.
So, brings us back to the question of the power sharing formula in Lagos State, for instance. 3 senatorial districts: Lagos East, Central, and West. And now, the deputy governor
is from Lagos Central.
Just like the current speaker.
The current speaker is from Central. Initially, the current deputy governor, in Lagos and in Kaduna in some state, you can come from Zaria and live in Magajingiri, Kaduna Metropolis. If it's convenient for you, you can claim Kaduna Central. At other points, you can claim Kaduna North. It happens in Lagos too. The current deputy speaker initially came from Lagos West, but now he has moved his base to Epe, which is Lagos East. So technically speaking, from governor, deputy governor, speaker, you want to leave Lagos West empty-handed. That is the argument of some leaders, of the party.
But you also just acknowledge that it is quite detrimental if Lagos West doesn't have...
Yes, I align with them. So that was why, from the snippets I was reading, there was an understanding that perhaps Miranda will revert to our former position as deputy speaker, while they now have one of the lawmakers from Lagos West emerge as speaker. That was the understanding that filtered to my hearing in the last 48 hours. And so that was why I said what I saw today was surprising to me, because it runs contrary to the things we had regarding the settlement or the resolution, that was reached. But give it to the leaders in Lagos. I believe that they have the capacity, to do what is right, in the interest of the country and in the interest of the party followers in the state.
Okay, Dr. Hashim, let's come back to you. Let's take a look at this table that chronicles the various impeachment sagas that state houses of assembly in Nigeria have experienced. This is just to give you a broad example of some of the issues that were raised to impeach speakers of state house of assembly. 26.9% of it is usually a political struggle, right? Some alignments and realignments needed to be done, and a speaker is impeached. Then you have 3.1% financial misconduct. There's usually the vote of no confidence in that. Then abuse of office is also rated highly at 15.4%. But more importantly, let's get to some of the details there, some of the ones that were removed, right? Most recently, you can go back to Benue State, for instance, a vote of no confidence removed Honorable Tekimbe Iyange from office, and the list goes on and on to the recent ones in Rivers. Martin Soemehule, obviously the defection, but also political tensions between the current governor and his predecessor, the current minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. I mean, like I did say, there's nothing peculiar about Lagos. We've seen this play out before. But what does this say about the quote-unquote independence of the legislature, especially at the state level?
So the thing is, like I said earlier, you cannot detach politics from all of the happenings in a democracy, right? Like when politics is the life, is what gives it, is what puts air into every democratic activity. So at any point in time that any activity is happening in any democratic sphere, you will not take out the place of politics, right? And so everything that is happening in Lagos is simply about politics. And that's why I told you earlier that politics again has a lot to do with influence and your ability to be able to exert it. And I told you earlier, I heard about the speaker talking about, for example, how inappropriate will be done, and then they'll say go to court. It's only court who would. And like I told you, I heard him speak. He said what's worrying him more is that his reputation for no reason is just being damaged, albeit through a process that's not even regular, simply to achieve. And why don't you just let the house come back and then perhaps do what you want to do and put out all of the allegations?
But even the writing on the wall, I mean, when he was removed, you saw the overwhelming support that his impeachment got, right? It's very clear that he doesn't have the confidence of his colleagues.
That, for example?
I mean, the votes are very clear.
So you mean from the members?
From the
and he also acknowledged that he doesn't have a problem with the fact that they want to get him out in unison. He doesn't have a problem with that. But what he has a problem with is the methodology. And I think he reserves a right to have absolute concern for his integrity, for his personality. He says he's been there since 2015. He's been with this current governor, for 6 years. And they've been all right, they've been working. So why all of a sudden all of this grave...
Have they been all right?
Haven't they been all right?
I mean...
No, I mean...
There have been so many issues.
Yeah, but they've been working.
No, if you look at the budget presentation, for me, I think that clearly showed that they probably were not on the same page. You know, he kept the governor for close to over 2 hours, and when he came, he didn't even make any effort to apologize. And the way he delivered his message that day, it was as if there was an opportunity, he probably would have even punched the governor. You know, and I think that was when a lot of people started raising eyebrows. Like, wait a minute, what is happening?
There are also
then
questions
again,
with regards
but
to the
speculation,
commissioner nominees sent by the state government, and you know,
and then there was but we heard also that I think that was more about balancing and stuff.
But
Look,
is that, does that you know suggest that there's a chink in the armor of the APC, especially when it comes to Lagos? I mean, clearly the performance of the APC in 2023. Especially with regards to the presidential election, leaves much to be desired, because that is the home state of the president, and he didn't win it. However, they still maintain power control of Lagos. You know, the governor is APC.
The governor, yes.
However, this is not a one united family. As an APC member, how do you explain this division within your party in Lagos?
Yeah, so the thing is, look, you have in a political party or in an association, you're bound to have different personalities. But guess what? What I believe is, as much as we're discussing this today, as much as it's become the banner on the front pages and what have you, but it's just a matter of days now and weeks, this is going to be behind. It's natural for people to have misunderstandings, and many these things are let out clear to say, okay, no, look, we understand maybe we should even do this, but then we should have done it this way, that way. Every stakeholder, look, Obasa is a major stakeholder, political stakeholder in Lagos. So I don't think that how much time Obasa has stayed as speaker, but how much, look, even on the street back here in Abuja, or even on the street of the north, when people heard about how Obasa was removed, you hear that people saying it by themselves that, this appears like some political dent for the president in Lagos. These are people who are even watching from afar, understanding how much influence, how much political influence he exerts. So certainly, I don't think even it will be at the interest of the president to let such a personality be let out in such a methodology. So I think from what I'm hearing from him and what I'm hearing from the other side, I only see a semblance of how to correct all of those, how will I say, like the processes that were perceived to be rightly or wrongly not followed, but then correct it, let him honorably even live there if he has to, and then everything stays back as a family. But why should I be here now and be supporting maybe why Obasa should be vilified? There's no reason for that as far as I'm concerned, considering even his political contribution to the political rise of the president. He's been a loyal person, he's been there during the Ambode time, they were in the forefront to make sure they execute, what was in the best interest of the party and what have you. So for me, I feel that peace is better than anything. I see that semblance to fix it. I feel they will, and at the end of the day, we'll all come out victorious.
A lot of talk about the president's political influence, especially in the Southwest, for instance. Most people would like to say that he has that under lock and key in terms of what happens on election day, right? Granted that PDP has 2 out of the 6 states there, but talk to me about how long this situation has lasted, from 13th of January, today being 28, and we still have more of these fillers coming in, showing that the situation is getting out of hand, with the DSS getting involved, with the police withdrawing security aid, later restoring it, and so on and so forth. It does appear there's a bit of a clash that is going on here, and it's far from over at this point.
Well, I agree with you that it's far from over, but from my experience around the corridors of power, you see, most times people tend to drop names of their principals to get certain things done. I'll give you just one example. In the build-up to the primaries of the APC, I was still with the then governor of Osun State as a political appointee, and we went for the meeting in Lagos, and a particular politician that was perceived to be anti-tinubu was coming in. I was in the midst of the security operatives, and one of them said, maybe we should off the light and beat this man. That after all, nobody will know who was responsible, and after beating him, we can then take him to the hospital. Somebody now said, if you try that, they will say it's Baba that sent us. Luckily, reason was allowed to prevail. That didn't happen, but The lesson I took from there was that if that thing had happened, there was no way anybody would say President Tinubu didn't know anything about it, or the Lagos governor didn't know. But I can confirm that these people had no idea of what was happening because they were already upstairs for the meeting when this discussion was happening downstairs. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because don't forget they said they withdrew Miranda's security operatives, and now as I was coming in this evening, I learned they have been restored. Some people will say, okay, for them to have withdrawn it, then the president must be involved.
There's the DSS also barring her from office.
But I can confirm to you that the president may not know anything. Somebody can just drop the name of the president to carry out that action. I am speaking from experience.
But who is the biggest voice in Lagos today that could call everything to order? Isn't that the president?
He is the president, whether we like it or not. But I'm also aware that there is GAC in Lagos.
The Advisory Council.
Government Advisory Council. They are also very powerful. Now, why Obasa's case has been very difficult is because majority of members of GAC are also not in support of him returning.
Right.
That was where there was some kind of a bit of confusion because majority of the GAG members don't want his return. And to the best of my knowledge, I know that the president does not joke with advices from that group. I want to believe that was why he enlisted the support of Chief B.C. Akande, former Osun State Governor and interim national chairman of APC, Chief Olusegun Oshoba, former governor of Ogun State, to help, intervene. And I believe very strongly that in the days ahead, they should be able to put this matter behind them.
And back to the conversation around the independence of the legislature, right? Let's talk about what this says about the second arm of government that is saddled with responsibility of lawmaking, but also oversight functions in checking the activities of the executive. Taking into account what has been happening, as the data showed, right, from 1999 to date, we've had close to a dozen impeachments that has left a very bad taste in the mouth of Nigerians. State assemblies and the overbearing influence of the executive arm. Are we making any progress in that direction?
Well, to be honest, I would say maybe a little, because look, I think we cannot single out the House of Assemblies alone to say that the lack of development of Nigeria's democratic space you can only see it effective in that sector. You find it in every sector. At every time we do voting in this country, we still talk about things like vote buying. All of those things are all the effects that you see with a democracy that is growing. But then, what is the takeaway about it? Is our democracy doing very badly? No, I don't think so. I think we're really trying to evolve. And I think if you check in the country now, conversations are getting louder. People talk about issues, even how this issue about the Lagos House of Assembly, people were, but perhaps maybe if it was in the past, probably by now it would have been over. Miranda would have been there, seated and doing her thing. But the fact that people are talking about it, people are talking about the laws, the appropriateness of it, shows indeed that people are beginning to appreciate that, yes, the laws could actually work. And I think that's the basic, how would I say, bastion of a democracy to grow. That people have to understand that the society is governed by extant provisions, which if everybody decides to follow, or tries to even insert them in their own strategies. Because look, you have to have strategists in the world of today. You cannot be in politics or anything without having critical strategists who understand about the workings. Check, for example, the news we had about the arrest of Professor Yusuf. And I read through it. I'm somebody who is versed with the Public Procurement Act. And I saw it and I said, oh, I'm sure perhaps the intent was not a bad one, but because there was no any technocratic somebody to give the advice that, look, no, this threshold is for the tenders board. That would have been it. So things like that. I'm just saying about how people have to appreciate. So I think, like, I can see the appreciation of that. I think people try as much as possible to go to court now. There's no that impunity sort of doing things. It's like even the river situation you mentioned. It was just about that certain strategies were perhaps not inserted when the defection was happening. Right. Otherwise, if people had advised about how to defect while you're a member of a House of Assembly, they probably wouldn't have been that lacuna, and they would have probably gotten it. But it's lingering up to this moment because perhaps there was that lack of. So I think with time, with appropriate awareness, I think people are going to get more versed with the extant laws, and things are going to get better.
It's safe to say that some Nigerians do believe that the politicians want to know very less, want to appear to not know what the provisions are, but they're well aware of it. Sometimes it's better to just ignore some of these provisions because they apparently want to be perceived as above the law, so to say, even though some of these things are in plain black and white in the provisions. But in talking about how these developments have, being re-echoed over and over again. I did point out what happened in 2023, 2024, and what is still happening right now in Rivers, for instance. The president stepped in to say, stop the bleeding, right? Let there be some sort of peace agreement. And we saw that maybe hold for a couple of days until the gloves came off again. Talk to me about how these developments could, affect, if in any way it can, what's going to happen in 2027. Well, because we also understand that the opposition in Lagos perhaps even tried to court Obasa because they know of his political currency.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, funny enough, in Nigeria, we prepare for the next election immediately after the first election, and there's no how, whatever that is happening, within any political party, within any political cycle, you must see an unwritten hand of the next election, in it. Now, in fairness to Lagos, if we want to talk about independence of legislature, I think Lagos enjoys it more than any other state, to the best of my knowledge.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, because
their finances,
they have absolute control over their finances. There are states where it's only when the governor needs something, the lawmakers would now say, if you don't give us this, we won't give you that. That's where most of them even, But you see, it's funny in the sense that I recall, was it the either the 6th or 7th Senate, when we started this debate about independence of the legislature, in most of the states, the lawmakers voted against it themselves.
Right.
And that's because the governors don't want it. So in most of the states, it's what the governor wants that they do. And because of the process of selection, because of the process of even nominating candidates, because when you have candidates who cannot think on their own, who cannot decide on their own, certainly you will continue to have it. But you see, 2027, the race started from the day Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn in as Mr. President. And that is why you see these pockets, of quality. In fact, I'm sure those who are insisting that Obasa should be reinstated or get a soft landing for him, they are also calculating 2027 into the mist. Because whether you like it or not, somebody who has spent over a decade in the House of Assembly and he has spent close to a decade as a speaker, certainly you cannot wish him in a way politically.
What does a soft landing in your view look like? I mean, if it's not the speaker, I reckon there isn't any position that would...
If I have opportunity of talking to Mr. President today on how to resolve the crisis in Lagos, because you see, sometimes, even when what your followers want, if they don't seem to align with your interests, sometimes you just let it go. Because there are times if you overstretch, you lose the face.
But you know something,
so,
sir.
So what I would suggest, if I have opportunity of advising Mr. President, is that Miranda should give way because she's from Lagos Central. Obasa should give way based on the fact that he has been removed. Now, if he pursues his case in court, and the court says, look, his removal was not properly done, and so for that reason, he returns to his seat, except you go and challenge that judgment, you have no basis.
So otherwise, how do you remove Miranda?
Otherwise, I would suggest. Otherwise, I would suggest that if they are able to come into a compromise with regards to getting somebody from Lagos West to occupy the seat, I'm sure they can talk to Miranda. She's also a politician, and she understands where the power resides. I'm sure she will step aside. Right. Then Obasa, after a few weeks in the house, can resign and be given another assignment to do.
You wanted to...
Yeah, but because what I'm saying is, look, you may not like somebody's face, but, up till this moment, I don't know, maybe you may be able to read it out. On what premise should Obasa be removed?
Oh, there's a lot of allegations against him.
Excuse me, I'm trying to get somewhere. Look, we're in this public space, and we understand how things are done. If you want to impeach a governor, you look at it, you know how it's done. You set up the committee, they would investigate, the Chief Justice will look at it, and then he will be the one to pass it off as genuine or legitimate, take it back to the House, and then they sit over it and they vote. Right? I have followed up all these processes. I have not seen where, even though the allegations were mentioned on the day when the impeachment was being made, but I did not remember any committee being set in the House to look. No, I'm trying to get somewhere.
No, I think look,
I want to glean this from something. And if I tell you this example, let me give this example. I want to give this example, then you understand what I'm talking about. Look, there is tendency in today's world of people to attempt to cancel people for no reason. Look, sir, if you're a leader and I'm your gatekeeper, for example, or I have a critical role I'm playing for you, you would have to be wary about the fact that so many people are going to attempt to cancel me where you are. And so if I make it that easy for anybody to just come and be cancelled in a minute, and I take a decision about it, it's going to set an extremely dangerous precedent. So I am not necessarily about whether that Obasa must remain there or not, but as far as I have followed this matter up until this moment, I have not seen where some semblance of fair hearing and investigation is being carried out.
Okay, so according to Chapter 5, Part 2, Section 92 of the Nigerian Constitution, regarding the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Section 2, subsection C says, the Speaker or Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly shall vacate his office if he ceases to be a member of the House when the House sits for the after any dissolution of the House, or if he is removed from office by a resolution of the House of Assembly by the votes of not less than 2/3 majority members of the House. So there doesn't need to be a committee to investigate anything. If you don't have the confidence of your colleagues, you're gone.
So, but that's what I'm saying. So suffice it to say that that's even real. But then what about the place of the fact that the House of Assembly was on recess?
I mean,
what do you say to that?
Haven't we answered that already?
But there was a caveat as to how the deputy speaker could.
I mean, he also said he was, on vacation in the U.S.
Yeah.
And the deputy.
And a date had been fixed.
Yeah, but the deputy speaker also reconvened the House for a special session, which then determined his fate as speaker.
So that's what, on what premise did you reconvene?
That's
the point.
No, you see,
because look, there should just be a semblance of due process, and that's what I feel. Like I feel like the decision was taken somewhat brazenly. There seemed to be some rush to do it. Were they scared? Were they scared of him to come and sit and they preside over it? Every other majority of the other speakers you spoke about that were impeached in Nigeria, they were perhaps sitting while their colleagues would do that.
I've never seen an impeachment process where the speakers are usually in plenary.
When they were to remove, is it Tejusu or Palumi, one of them as deputy I think our speaker in Lagos, I think he was seated. But in most of the cases, you know, it's like a coup. Most of the cases, they are not around.
Right, in absentia.
They are not around. And there are times when they begin it, you see the sign. That of Obasa, I must confess, took me by surprise because I didn't see it coming. In some cases, you will see from the moves from like late Chuba Kadibu, when it was to be removed. We already saw the signs and we knew that it's just a matter of time. So the moment they started taking signatures, and those who were supporting him, some of them were appending their signature, we knew he was a gunner. You know, but this one, whoever spearheaded the plot, I give the person kudos.
A lot of people,
you're not home yet.
Yeah, let me get to the question. A lot of people have fingered Governor Saulu as the architect of the removal. Clearly, they are not on the same page, right? But also, some have also alluded to Obasa's, you know, penchant to be quite brazen with his, you know, public statements.
Yes.
His ambition, for instance, to put his hat in the ring to say, listen, I'm fit to be governor of Lagos State. Do you think that has also, you know, influenced?
Yeah. So this question was asked of him earlier, and he said what he said. He has never told anybody in Lagos, and he has challenged anybody in Lagos to come out and say that he discussed an ambition with him. That is not to say he didn't say that he was ably qualified to be a governor, and he reiterated that today. I mean, he is qualified. But look, why do we in this country choose to demonize ambitions? I'm trying to fathom this for a long time. I have not been able. I do not. I aspire. As you see me here like this right now, trust me, brother, I am aspiring. Make no mistake about it. And I don't even pretend about it because I am aspiring. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So people have it, and that's why I said this penchant for people cancelling people has become a cancer in Nigeria. Trump was talking about with Musk, and he said, and the interviewer was asking Trump about how he's managing, how people are trying to come in between and saying Musk is now the president. He said, oh yeah, they're trying, but they're terribly bad about it. Because he would not take it. He understands that this is just an attempt to push this person away. So for me is, look, there is absolutely no need to overheat all of this stuff. If Obasa has paid his political credentials to be where he is, I think people should respect it, even if you probably don't want him. But I think you could definitely apply more tact, more strategy, more consultations, more buy-in, and just be able to do it amicably and everybody's back and home.
Is this win-win situation with the advisory council stepping in and other stakeholders chipping in, as those reports suggest, that Miranda and Obasa may both step aside for a new speaker to emerge? Is that really a win-win situation for the APC?
Well, for me, I think so, because, you know, one thing with political decisions, you also have to be very careful not to set a bad precedent. Now, people will argue that yes, if you believe that the process of his removal was not right, how will you describe the process of his comeback? So, but you can hide under a court pronouncement. So, for me,
what does that also say for our judiciary if they have to play along?
That's the point.
What if the judiciary doesn't think there is validity?
Exactly. That's what look.
Yeah.
What
at the end of the day, the person has been cheated for no reason.
Yeah, what I'm saying this is, I know that I can't remember the section of the Constitution. There's a constitutional provision that debars the judiciary from interfering in the internal affairs of the legislature.
Right.
So I'm also foreseeing maybe Obasa has seen that roadblock. That's why he did what he did.
That's what I'm telling you. That's where the strategy comes in.
Because otherwise, if he was sure he was going to get justice from the court, let me say justice. If he was sure that the case he had instituted would be favorable to him, I'm not sure he would have done what he did. But again, I'm sure he didn't do it alone.
But who
some persons may have...
Yeah, knowing what you know about Lagos politics, right? Who is in Obasa's corner and who is in the corner of Speaker Miranda and her group of 26 other lawmakers?
Look, all of them, they are members of one political party.
There's one Labour Party. There's one Labour Party. Only one from...
No, what I mean, what I mean, all of them, I mean those involved in all these intrigues.
Oh yeah, obviously.
They all belong to one political family, and that's why most people believe that, you know, if he decides, but you know, as the president of the country, he has a lot of
work on his table.
You know,
He will not, yeah.
You know, on his table to deal with. From the grapevine, I also gathered authoritatively that one of the things, you know, that angered the president was that taking a decision to remove a number 3 without carrying him along was dangerous politically.
Especially the fair.
And what does that say about the president's grip on his home state of Lagos?
No,
if something so big and such a big decision can be taken without the president's approval, apparently, what does that say about his grip on Lagos?
But we heard also that it wasn't like he wasn't carried. While he was in Lagos in December, they actually did meet him. Well, guess what was missing in there? And that's what I've been hammering on. There was zero fair hearing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So perhaps, you know how you're so busy as the president, you probably give them only 10 to 15 minutes. Do you understand? And
yeah, but he didn't green light the move.
No, so no, that's what I'm saying.
You know,
I'm saying I want you to picture the situation. It was a 15
language.
It was a 15 minutes thing, and there was just a briefing, and probably he didn't even say yes or no. There's probably a presumption of, because he is too busy. He's the president. He has protocol people saying this and that, and so you may see a situation where a proper briefing is not done, and then it was carried out. But look, be that as it may, as it is playing out right now. We have spoken about how in the past speakers will not be around, they'll be impeached, and that stays. In this case, he wasn't around, he was impeached, but he hasn't pulled through, apparently. What we must also notice right now is the clear withdrawal of Miranda from the scene. She was not even with this other group that spoke earlier. She has not said a word about it. The last report we have even read from the papers is to the effect that she has resigned. And I have not read any other statement saying that I haven't. So therefore, and today, Obasa has resumed to the office. So if you ask me right now, I think the position is perhaps clear. Now, I think the only other snag that is left is what is Obasa to continue as the speaker, or there's going to be some other considerations. But then I'm sure that those considerations would certainly have to take into cognizance the sort of political influence that Obasa has brought to the table.
And as we wrap things up, what is the cost of this little skirmish in Lagos on the governance process itself? I mean, not much has been said about Governor Sanwo-Olu. He's been quite, silent about everything that's playing out. But what do you think the cost of this will be on the APC's governance of Lagos State going forward?
Well, so far, I think Sanwo-Olu has given a good account of himself as the governor of the state. And I believe that with his effort so far, I don't think APC will face the kind of challenge it faced in 2023. My only fear is that there are some political actors that may pay for what has happened, because if we say it's Sanwo-Olu that is behind it, I can tell you that Sanwo-Olu couldn't have done it alone. There are some actors that would have orchestrated, what transpired, and it's like trying to dare, the lion. And if you face a general and you fail to pull the trigger, you should know that
there will be repercussions.
There will be repercussions.
Finally, Dr. Hashim, as an APC member, your party has some few cracks that it needs to iron out. Key among them are prominent members of the APC saying very critical things about how the party is derailing. Do you think that the party is managing some of these crises or handling these crises in such a way that it would inspire confidence in you going forward to the election?
Yeah, so the thing is, right, in an association, first of all, you don't force anybody to be in it. But the most important thing is yesterday there was NEC. The NEC was packed. Everybody was present. There was a vote of confidence on. No, I mean, literally, you cannot have everybody. There will be people who will be agree. But the point, basically, I'm trying to make is that when you have a principal, your agenda cannot supersede that of the principal. We are in this country when President Buhari ruled for 8 years, Asuwaju allowed him to rule because he felt he had the mandate, and he never said the word. Perhaps even if he had areas that he probably didn't agree with, he's human, he could have had, but he chose to respect himself. I feel that every other person who supported Asuwaju to become the president should perhaps be patient with him and align with him, or else, if you know you're not in it anymore, just pull out and be fair about it and clear about your mission.
Gentlemen, interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining me on the program tonight. We do appreciate your takes and your insight on this one. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
All right, and that is our conversation for you tonight on Daily Politics. Feel free to join us for tomorrow's edition of the program. We'll be back live and exclusive on Trust TV at 8 p.m. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for joining us and good evening.